friends, welcome back. Today I thought we could talk about some of the books I read in 2024. Go over my favorites, my least favorites, maybe you'll get some recommendations to read in 2025, or maybe you'll just kill 15 minutes hanging with me. A reminder before we get started that I make music. It is out in the world. You can find it under Robin Tucker anywhere you listen to music. And if you're not already part of Robin's Nest, which is my super fun, super cool email list, join. The link's in the description. When you sign up, you get access to my vault of unreleased music and all of the stories I send out about my life and songs. All right, shall we do it? So, we're just going to go through some of the books that I've read this year that I thought were worth talking about. The first one is Lie With Me by Philippe Besson. I'm sure I'm butchering that spelling. This was written in French and it was actually translated to English by Molly Ringwald. Yes, the Molly Ringwald. I was very surprised. I had to Google it. This book is really interesting. I guess I should also say spoilers. I will be giving some light spoilers for all the books I'm talking about. This book was interesting. I thought it was going to be kind of a cute romance novel, and it starts out that way. It's these two boys who are in school in France, and it's one of them kind of recalling this thing that happened from when he was younger. And I'm not sure if it's nonfiction or not. It kind of reads like it's nonfiction, but I'm not sure. And basically he's recalling this teenage romance that he had with this other boy. But it ends up really sad because the other boy ends up like marrying a woman and then later killing himself. And so that's kind of sad, but it was good. Just not the lighthearted read I was expecting. But recommend. It's a very quick read. It's kind of more like a novelette than a book. But yeah, I liked it. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is And They Lived by Stephen Salvatore. This book was very good. I enjoyed it. It touched on a lot of issues around body image and sexual shame and things I think are very real issues and very important issues. And it's definitely an emotional roller coaster, but it does have a happy ending, which I always like in a book. And yeah, I just thought it was a nice, refreshing read. Some parts of it were very fluffy, some parts of it were very dark. So, covers the emotional spectrum. That's the first thing I've read by Stephen Salvatore too. No, wait, he and Becker, English. Stephen Salvatore and Becky Albertalli did the So What If It's Us? Is that what it's called? Those two books. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, moving on. I want to talk about two books kind of more in the self-help genre that I read this year. The first one is Energy Medicine by Donna Eden with Dr. David Feinstein. This book is amazing. If you're interested in energy healing, energy medicine, this is kind of like the Bible for it. I recommend getting a physical copy if you read it because it's very thick. There's a lot of info and you'll want to make notes, bookmark things to come back to, etc. Donna Eden is really amazing. Her story is fascinating and it's a really good read. And kind of a counterpart to that is The Five Elements by Dondi Dahlin, who's actually Donna Eden's daughter. The Five Elements come from traditional Chinese medicine, and it's kind of like the original personality type system, but it goes deeper than just kind of your personality. It touches on your energy and your body, your health, your spirit. It's a very holistic kind of personality system, and I found it really enlightening and it helped me understand myself in new ways. And it's a fun read too. Dondi has lived a really fascinating life and she weaves stories from it as it relates to each of the five elements. So definitely a read I highly recommend. Okay. The next two books are Boyfriend Material and Husband Material by Alexis Hall. I'd seen these books get a lot of hype online, and I'll say I was not smitten. I read both of them. The first one was an okay read, and the second one I really struggled to get through. I don't know. I think I'm just a little tired of the trope of like the very gay person and the kind of straight gay person and like the conflict that can create in a relationship, and I feel like that's a lot of what that book was about. So I would say that definitely falls on the low end of the spectrum of things I read this year. There were some fun moments, but overall I was like, this is a little bit tedious and boring. Sorry. Also in the self-help genre, I read Happy Days by Gabby Bernstein this year. Really powerful book. If you are in any stage of your kind of healing, trauma healing journey, this book is really informative. Gabby opens up so much about her own experiences, processing traumatic memories, doing things to release discomfort from her body. And it's a really powerful read, and it is helpful because she outlines the various modalities and things that she tried and used to overcome some of her mental, physical, whatever issues. So it's a nice kind of first-hand review of some of those modalities that you may have heard about and been interested in. So highly recommend. Slight trigger warning with that. If you are in a bad place, digest it slowly, because she definitely goes into some very dark topics. So just, I think, a trigger warning with that one. Okay. Snow Boys by Simon Doyle. This book is so good. This book is amazing. It's about these two boys in, I want to say Wales. But now that I've said it, I feel like that's not true. Somewhere over there. And it's a really beautiful book. All the ensemble characters are really good and fleshed out, and the two main characters are just really lovely, really relatable, and it kind of takes place around Christmas time, so it's a nice winter Christmas read. I'll say a little trigger warning with that too, would be alcoholism, self-harm. One of the boys is not having a good time at home. Parents really fucked up. So light trigger warning with that. But overall, it's a very wholesome, wonderful kind of coming of age queer read. So that's one of my favorite things I read this year. The Brightness Between Us by Elliot Shepard. This is the sequel to The Darkness Outside Us, which I loved. I thought it is one of the best books I've ever read. Genius. That being said, The Brightness Between Us was not as good. I'm just gonna say it. It was still good, and there were parts I really enjoyed. One thing I loved about The Darkness Outside Us was the huge plot twist, and there was a similar plot twist in this that I really enjoyed. That being said, a lot of the book was kind of a flashback, which I didn't love quite as much. So I mean, comparing it to something like The Darkness Outside Us is a really high standard, because The Darkness Outside Us was just so good. So The Brightness Between Us is still a good book. It's just not as good as the first one. But if you read the first one and you liked it, I think it's worth a read. Oh my gosh. Okay, the Bear, Otter, and the Kid series. I read the first two books of these. I think the first one is called Bear, Otter, and the Kid, and the second one is called Who We Are, I think. And these are both by TJ Klune, who is one of my absolute favorite authors. I think a lot of people probably know TJ Klune from The House in the Cerulean Sea. I kind of find that to be an outlier in TJ Klune's, I wanted to say like discography, but that's not right. What do you call a literary, I don't know, works. I kind of find that to be an outlier. A lot of TJ Klune's other stuff I find to be a lot more fascinating and interesting. If you haven't read the Tales from Verania series by TJ Klune, so good. It's like queer fantasy. There's a gay hornless unicorn. It's fantastic. But anyway, Bear Otter and the Kid, I just devoured these books. Also up there as some standout things that I read this year. Just amazing books. I don't even want to like really talk about them other than to say they are so good. Read them. They're amazing. There are more books in the series that I haven't read yet, and I'm not sure that I want to, because the third book changes narrators, and then the fourth book kind of comes back, and I kind of like where the second book left it, and I kind of want to just keep my memories and end the story there, so I'm not sure that I'm actually going to finish the series, but I could not recommend it more. Okay, moving on, another sequel, The Only Light Left Burning by Eric J. Brown. This is the sequel to All That's Left in the World, which I thought was fantastic. The Only Light Left Burning was bad. I could not finish it. I got maybe a quarter in, and I stopped. Which is so disappointing because the first book was so amazing. But I thought the plot was bad. I didn't like where it went. I think a pitfall that a lot of post-apocalyptic books fall into is that it can just be really boring. When the world is ending, or has ended, there's not that much to do. And so I think it can be a struggle sometimes to keep it interesting. And that, I think, is something that this book suffered from. I also think that there were a number of different paths that the plot could have gone after the first book, and I felt like the author chose one of the least interesting. Which, again, is really disappointing, and I hate to give it a bad review because the first book was so incredible, but I did not finish the second one. Okay, on to maybe my favorite book I read this year, Understatement of the Year by Sarina Bowen. I'm still trying to make up my mind on how I feel about women writing MM romances, but I gotta say, this book was phenomenal. I loved it. It was so good. It's like these two guys on a college ice hockey team, and they were kind of romantically involved as teenagers, and then like some shit went down, things got bad, they haven't spoken in a really long time, and it's them going from like kind of hating each other to like reconnecting to falling in love. But just the book as a whole is so good. The world building is so good. All the characters are amazing. It's just, it like broke my heart and like mended it back up at the same time. It's so good. And one thing I like about it too is that every chapter begins with a little like hockey term and description of that hockey term that plays into the theme of the chapter. So I thought that was really cool. I think that is it for kind of my highlights and lowlights of this year. I read some good stuff this year. I'm so happy to be alive at a time where there's so much good literature coming out, especially queer and MM literature. Like, it is an endless bounty, and I love it. I also made a couple of omissions from this list of things that were just like so cringy that I don't want to say that I read them. But that is a quick overview of some of the things that I read this year. Please let me know what you're reading. Drop it in the comments. Give me any recommendations you think I would like based on this list. I will say I just started reading Where There's a Will, the Lost Boys trilogy, and I need your thoughts and prayers because I know it's going to wreck me. Alright, friends, I just wanted to say before I go, thank you so much for all the love and support you've given my music in 2024. It's been an incredible year, and I'm just so glad that so many of you found my music. There's so much more to come in 2025, and make sure to get on Robin's Nest now so you don't miss any of it. I hope you have a great new year, and I will see you very soon.